Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Saiyan Bura, and in this video I will be drawing fan art from Dragonball Z, which is one of my favorite anime in the world. Since I grew up with that ever since I was a little girl, so it kind of has a major soft spot with me. And I was always very much intrigued by the female, or by the Saiyans actually, by the Super Saiyan specifically. Really love that combination and that power. And in this video I wanted to draw Vegeta's daughter from Dragon Ball GT, who's called Bulla in English or Bura in Japanese, which incidentally is also where my username has come from. And I wanted to draw her as a Super Saiyan. And that's actually mainly because in the anime itself there are no female Super Saiyans. I think there's one female Saiyan in total, which is Bardock's teammate, Selipa. And later on, Akira Toriyama, who's the artist of Dragon Ball Z, revealed Goku's mother in an interview. So that's Bardock's wife. So then we have two Saiyans, although they still weren't Super Saiyans. So because I really like strong women, and because I kind of feel myself as being a strong woman as well, I like to express that in my art as well. And I like to draw characters, women who can kick some ass and who aren't weak and who don't need anyone to save them, because basically they can save themselves. So in this video I basically just started drawing a face of Bulla as a Super Saiyan, and I figured it was a little bit empty, so I just started doodling a little bit more, and I ended up with the pose of her in the background, not actually punching someone, because using that type of a punch is actually really bad for your wrists. And then in the background it was still a little bit empty. I wanted to draw her normal form. So my inking process generally goes as follows. I do multiple line art drawings. So either I do a pencil sketch and then I trace it with a light box on a new piece of paper to have good solid quality lines, or I will do a pencil sketch and then draw the lines on top of it. However, what I've noticed is that after you erase the pencil marks underneath your ink lines, the ink lines generally get a little bit faded and they don't look as black or as high quality as I'd like. So often I either do a second pass of the ink after I've erased the pencils, which you can see in my video here, right here, or I do the inking a second time after I've colored the entire piece. Mainly also because sometimes using or coloring on top of the ink also sort of lessens the blackness and the deepness of the ink, I guess. So I kind of switch my approach based on that. In my case, however, I did do a second pass on the foreground figure, and then I figured I'd just do the same thing with the rest of the drawing after I was done coloring it. I wanted to talk a little bit more about my color choices for this piece, but also for my color choices in general. So what I try to do is to use the least amount of markers possible, just to force myself to blend the existing colors better. As you know, maybe you don't know, with Copic Markers, since they are alcohol based, they're created to blend. So the first layer of a color is generally very, very light. So if you wait for it to dry and then go over it again, it will be a little bit darker. And since Copic is so good at blending and layering, you can go over up to, I don't know, depending on what your paper allows, of course, 5 to 10 times and get a tiny bit of a darker gradient or shade every single time. And I try to use this to my advantage to create the optimal blended color palette by the end of a piece. So what I try to do is have one light color, such for the skin tone that would be E000, one mid-tone, which for skin is in this case E51, and sometimes a really darker shades, which in this case could be E95. I try to focus mostly on the light tone and the mid-tone and use the dark tone as sparingly as possible. On top of that, for skin, I try to use a different type of color in order to create more of a contrasting effect. So for skin, that is a pink tone, because that flashes out the skin a little bit more. It could be a green tone, it could be a blue tone, it could even be a purple tone. And for other parts of the drawing, such as clothes, I try to use a different color for a different type of light source. Although I did none of that in this particular drawing, I kept it very, very simple and straightforward. And because if you try to work with different light sources in a physical drawing and then do different poses and the whole background thing, it gets very complicated very quickly and it's very easy to mess up. So in this case, I wanted to keep it very, very simple. When it comes to the color for her outfit, you could see that I actually started with 3 colors, 2 Copics, and then I actually had a Winsor and Newton pigment marker, which is this really beautiful deep red. It blended fine with the Copic, but the color it laid down was so dark and so pure, and it was definitely, I'm very happy I got these. So, now that the main part of the drawing is done, it's time for the ever-dreaded background part of the drawing. In this case, I wanted to do a solid color background, and I use color theory in order to decide what that color will be. So, if you look at this, I point out the colors in my drawing out on the color wheel, and then go to the opposite side of the spectrum. So, for green, that is red, and for orange, that is blue. And those are called complementary colors because they're opposite on each other and they enhance each other. They really make the other color in a drawing pop. So I decided to go with blue for the background because it pops the most with the yellow part of the drawing, which is like the biggest part. And I didn't really want to go with green, which is the opposite of red, because her normal hair color is already teal and greenish, and I didn't think that would stand out much. Looking at color theory actually kind of explains a lot of design choices you see in, well, around the world actually. So for instance, while dark yellow / orangey and blue are complementary colors, really explains, for instance, in Dragonball Z, the Super Saiyan design, which has yellow hair and blue spandex uniforms. And in this particular case, Bulla is actually also designed with complementary colors because the main part of her outfit is red, while her hair is actually teal and green. So right now I'm just finalizing the last details of the drawing, which is adding a white outline and white highlights using a Gelly Rol Pen, a white Gelly Rol Pen, which is one of my favorite tools within drawing. There are actually many ways to do backgrounds for pieces, and I know a lot of artists struggle to do them simply because it's so time-consuming, or they don't know how to draw or what to draw, or because it's complicated. I know for myself that I've always drawn people, characters, and I had no clue how to draw anything else but them. But I've made it a point for myself to force myself to do in some kind of background, simply because I find it bad practice for myself and bad habit to just avoid doing the thing entirely. And there's no way to get better at something unless you practice and practice. So for all of my drawings, I try to do some kind of background, unless it's a specific portrait that wouldn't require it. And I try to switch between complex backgrounds and more simple backgrounds. So the one that I actually do in this video is a much more simple background. It's only 2 colors of blue with a tiny gradient and then simple white stars. So for this one it's very easy, but for others it could be more complicated, like trees or forests. So we're already at the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up or leave a comment, or even better, subscribe to my channel if you want to receive more. Have a great day.